In a dramatic turn of events, President Donald Trump is poised to announce new reciprocal tariffs on major trading partners today following the implementation of blanket levies of 25% on steel and aluminum imports just yesterday. The immediate response from global leaders and economic analysts reflects a growing concern over the potential fallout from these tariffs, which could reshape international trade dynamics and provoke retaliatory actions from affected nations. As Trump convenes meetings at the White House with Jordan's King Abdullah II and Crown Prince Hussein, he is simultaneously advancing a controversial proposal to take control of the Gaza Strip, a move that could further complicate U.S. relations in the Middle East. This dual focus on tariffs and foreign policy underscores the administration's aggressive stance in both economic and geopolitical arenas. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has criticized Trump's recent actions, emphasizing the necessity of adhering to the rule of law. Donald Trump is not free to bulldoze his way through the rule of law. He is an executive, not a monarch, Schumer stated, highlighting that the courts have repeatedly halted elements of Trump's policy agenda. This backlash reflects the mounting tension between the executive branch and the judiciary, raising questions about the future of Trump's legislative efforts. In Congress, there is also rising discontent among Democrats regarding Trump's proposed cuts to the Department of Education. House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar warned that his party may withhold support for upcoming spending bills if Trump's education policies remain unchanged, indicating a potential stalemate as the March deadline for government funding approaches. Internationally, the reaction to Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs has been swift and varied. Canada, a leading supplier of these materials, expressed strong condemnation of the tariffs, with Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne labeling them totally unjustified. He emphasized the critical role Canadian steel plays in U.S. industries such as defense and energy, outlining a commitment to defend Canada's economic interests. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has indicated that an exemption from tariffs may be under consideration given the US-Australia trade surplus, while European leaders have promised a firm response. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated that unjustified tariffs on the EU will not go unanswered, signaling potential retaliatory measures from the 27-nation bloc. The UK government has adopted a cautious approach, seeking dialogue with the US while preparing for possible economic repercussions. India's response has been mixed, with officials downplaying the impact of the tariffs due to the relatively small volume of steel exported to the US. However, industry leaders have warned of potential market disruptions that could arise from increased competition as US steel suppliers adjust to the new tariffs. As trading partners grapple with these developments, experts predict that the long-term consequences may include a shift in global trade strategies. Ishwar Prasad, an international trade policy expert, noted that countries may begin to diversify their markets away from the US in response to the heightened protectionism. Wendy Cutler of the Asia Society Policy Institute echoed this sentiment, suggesting that while initial negotiations may occur to mitigate the impact, the persistent threat of tariffs could lead to a re-evaluation of trading relationships. As the clock ticks down to the effective date of the new tariffs, the world watches closely to see how nations will respond. The coming days will likely reveal whether Trump's bold economic maneuvers will yield the desired outcomes or ignite a broader trade conflict that could have far-reaching implications for the global economy. In a significant move that echoes his previous administration's trade policies, President Donald Trump announced on Sunday his intention to impose a sweeping 25% tariff on all foreign steel and aluminum imports starting Monday. This decision marks a bold step in his ongoing efforts to reshape America's trade landscape, affecting even close allies like Canada and Mexico. Speaking from Air Force One en route to the Super Bowl, Trump asserted that the tariffs would apply universally, declaring any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff. Aluminum. 2. This announcement comes amid a series of aggressive trade actions that Trump has proposed since taking office, including an additional 10% tariff on all products from China and threats of tariffs impacting a range of industries across Europe and Asia. Industry analysts warn that these tariffs could fuel retaliatory measures from trading partners, potentially igniting a broader trade conflict. Historically, Trump's previous tariffs on metals have drawn ire from allies and led to significant diplomatic strain. As Trump prepares to navigate this renewed trade skirmish, Vice President J.D. Vance has taken a hard stance against federal judges who have blocked several executive actions, calling such rulings illegal. This sentiment reflects an escalating tension between the executive branch and the judiciary, with Trump echoing Vance's sentiments. "No judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision," he stated, aiming to reinforce the administration's narrative that judicial oversight is an impediment to governance. In addition to these tariff implications, the Trump administration is embroiled in various controversies, including the revocation of security clearances for several political adversaries, including former Secretary of State Antony Blinken and New York Attorney General Letitia James. These actions, characterized by some as politically motivated retaliation, highlight the administration's contentious relationship with its critics. Trump defended these moves, asserting that stripping these officials of their clearances was necessary for maintaining national security and accountability. The political climate surrounding Trump's administration remains fraught with challenges. His recent directive to halt the production of pennies, citing their cost inefficiency, has sparked mixed reactions among the public. While some, like local cafe worker Johnny Powderly, argue that pennies still serve a practical purpose for cash-reliant individuals, others, including coin expert Michelle Volks-Griesbach, view them as obsolete. The debate reflects broader economic concerns, as the U.S. Mint reported a staggering loss of $85 million last year on penny production alone. Meanwhile, legal battles continue to mount against Trump's controversial policies, particularly regarding immigration and federal workforce management. Recent rulings have temporarily halted his administration's attempts to relocate undocumented migrants to Guantanamo Bay, further complicating his aggressive immigration agenda. The administration's fork-in-the-road proposal to encourage federal employees to resign has also faced legal scrutiny, with unions challenging its legality. Looking ahead, Trump's administration seems poised to intensify its confrontational approach toward both domestic and international challenges. His plans to impose new tariffs could reshape trade relations significantly, while ongoing legal battles may determine the future of his executive authority. As the administration navigates these complexities, the potential for a constitutional crisis looms over its aggressive push against judicial oversight and political opposition. With midterm elections approaching, the ramifications of these policies will undoubtedly shape the political landscape and the discourse surrounding Trump's presidency. In a significant legal development, a U.S. judge has ordered the reinstatement of Hampton Dellinger, the recently fired head of the Office of Special Counsel (OSC), amidst a tumultuous political landscape shaped by President Donald Trump's aggressive reshaping of federal agencies. This ruling comes as Dellinger challenges his dismissal, arguing that it lacked any factual or legal basis, and underscores ongoing tensions within the U.S. government regarding whistleblower protections and civil service integrity. On February 10, 2025, Dellinger was abruptly removed from his position via an email from the White House personnel director, a move that has been interpreted as part of a broader effort by Trump to diminish the influence of civil service protections. The OSC plays a crucial role in investigating claims of retaliation against whistleblowers and ensuring that federal employees can report misconduct without fear of retribution. U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson granted Dellinger temporary reinstatement while she deliberates on his request for a restraining order, emphasizing that the Trump administration cannot deny him access to the OSC's resources or recognize anyone else as the special counsel during this period. Dellinger expressed relief and determination to resume his duties, stating in an email, "I am grateful to have the opportunity to continue leading the Office of Special Counsel, and I am resuming my work tonight." However, the Trump administration wasted no time in filing an appeal against the judge's order, indicating a contentious legal battle ahead. The ramifications of Dellinger's firing extend beyond individual job security. They highlight a potentially dangerous precedent for the treatment of whistleblowers in the federal workforce. Stephen Cohn, chairman of the National Whistleblower Center, criticized the dismissal as irresponsible and dangerous, pointing out that it threatens a critical government mechanism designed to protect taxpayer interests and encourage reporting on fraud and abuse. Cohn noted that the OSC maintains confidential lists of whistleblowers whose identities are now at risk due to this upheaval. Adding to the chaos, the Trump administration announced the removal of David Huitema, the director of the U.S. Office of Government Ethics, another agency critical to maintaining transparency and accountability in government operations. Huitema voiced disappointment over his ouster, which he received without explanation, further illustrating the current administration's tumultuous relationship with established oversight bodies. As the legal skirmishes unfold, Trump's broader agenda appears to be focused on reshaping the federal landscape. Critics argue that his administration's actions are undermining decades of civil service protections, with Dellinger's case serving as a pivotal example. Dellinger himself noted in his lawsuit that the OSC's ability to protect civil service employees is needed now more than ever, especially in light of an unprecedented wave of firings without cause among federal employees. The implications of these developments are far-reaching, suggesting a potential weakening of protections for whistleblowers and a shift in how federal agencies operate under the current administration. As the legal battle over Dellinger's removal continues, it is likely to reignite discussions around governmental accountability and the essential role of whistleblowers in safeguarding democratic principles. Looking ahead, the stakes remain high. The outcomes of Dellinger's lawsuit could set important precedents for future administrations and their treatment of civil servants. As the political landscape continues to evolve, all eyes will be on how these legal challenges unfold and what they mean for the integrity of federal oversight in the United States. In a significant shift in economic policy, President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping set of tariffs that could reshape trade dynamics between the United States and several key partners. With a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports set to take effect on March 12 and a 10% tax on all products imported from China already in place, the implications of these measures are poised to reverberate throughout various sectors of the economy. Tariffs, essentially taxes imposed on imported goods, are designed to protect domestic industries by making foreign products more expensive. In Trump's view, these tariffs will bolster U.S. manufacturing, safeguard jobs, and generate additional tax revenue. "We are taking bold action to hold Mexico, Canada, and China accountable for their promises," Trump stated, pointing to the tariffs as part of a broader strategy to combat illegal immigration and the influx of drugs, particularly fentanyl, into the country. The introduction of these tariffs comes at a time when the U.S. is the world's largest importer of steel, with Canada, Brazil, and Mexico as its primary suppliers. Historically, tariffs on steel and aluminum in 2018 led to a 2.4% and 1.6% increase in domestic prices, respectively, according to the U.S. International Trade Commission. As the new tariffs take effect, analysts predict similar price hikes could ensue, particularly affecting American companies reliant on these metals for their manufacturing processes. Economists are already warning that the 10% tariff on Chinese goods, effective February 4, could lead to increased prices for consumers. Goods priced over $800 will be subjected to this charge, which could result in significant consumer price inflation. For example, the average cost of a car in the U.S. might surge by as much as $3,000, according to financial analysts, due to the cascading effects of tariffs on vehicle parts that frequently cross the borders of the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. The international response has been swift, particularly from China, which retaliated with its own tariffs on U.S. goods, including a 15% charge on coal and liquefied natural gas. Canada's government described the tariffs as totally unjustified and has vowed to retaliate, indicating it would implement a proposed 25% tariff on $155 billion worth of U.S. imports. Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has committed to sending National Guard members to the U.S.-Mexico border to combat drug trafficking, suggesting a willingness to collaborate on issues of mutual concern even as trade tensions escalate. The broader implications of these trade wars are concerning to many economists. While Trump's administration touts the potential for job creation in manufacturing, the immediate reality for consumers could be higher prices and diminished purchasing power. The annual inflation rate in the U.S. could rise from 2.9% to as high as 4% according to Capital Economics as the tariffs ripple through the economy. As the administration navigates these turbulent waters, there remains uncertainty surrounding U.S. policy, especially in light of potential tariffs on the European Union, which Trump has described as having a lopsided trade relationship with the U.S. This could ignite further conflicts in global trade, possibly leading to a widespread trade war. In conclusion, while the administration's tariffs may be seen as a protective measure for U.S. industries, the potential for increased consumer prices and retaliatory actions from trade partners could create a complex economic landscape. As this situation evolves, stakeholders across the board, from manufacturers to consumers, will be closely monitoring developments. The coming months will reveal whether the anticipated economic benefits will outweigh the costs associated with escalating trade tensions. In a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, the United States is witnessing a notable shift in defense strategies, underscored by a surge in defense spending and a renewed focus on international alliances. As tensions rise with global adversaries, recent developments signal a commitment to enhancing military capabilities and strengthening partnerships, particularly with India and NATO allies. During a press briefing, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth highlighted a positive outlook for defense expenditures, asserting that the U.S. military's budget is expected to grow despite challenges posed by external reviews, including those from high-profile figures like Elon Musk. Hegseth emphasized the imperative of maintaining a robust defense posture, particularly in light of rising threats from nations such as China and Russia. Our commitment to national security remains unwavering, and we will ensure our military is equipped to meet these challenges head-on, he stated. This renewed focus on defense spending coincides with heightened anticipation among NATO allies regarding Hegseth's upcoming visit, which marks the first official trip by a U.S. defense secretary from the Trump administration. The visit is expected to address key issues such as collective security and military readiness, reinforcing the alliance's commitment to mutual defense in the face of increasing global instability. In a related development, former National Security Advisor John Bolton has reignited discussions surrounding Greenland, framing it as a critical area for U.S. security interests. Bolton's argument centers on the strategic importance of Greenland in countering threats from adversaries, particularly in the Arctic region. He criticized the previous administration's approach, suggesting that public discourse surrounding the potential acquisition of Greenland undermined diplomatic efforts. When you act like a playground bully, you make it harder for other leaders to engage in meaningful discussions, Bolton remarked, advocating for a more nuanced approach to international negotiations. On the Indian front, the U.S.-India defense partnership is poised for significant advancements, as the Trump administration seeks to build on the groundwork laid by previous administrations. Experts suggest that enhancing defense technology cooperation and joint military operations will be pivotal in cementing India's role as a stabilizing force in the Indo-Pacific region. India is not just a partner, it is a key player in our strategy to deter Chinese aggression, said Samir Lalwani, a senior expert at the U.S. Institute of Peace. The proposed initiatives include co-production agreements for advanced military equipment and increased participation in joint military exercises. These efforts aim to bolster both nations' capabilities while fostering deeper ties between their defense industries. Notably, the U.S. is expected to expedite arms sales and technology transfers, addressing India's defense procurement challenges. As the geopolitical landscape continues to shift, the U.S. faces the dual challenge of enhancing its military readiness while fostering productive international partnerships. The ongoing dialogues with NATO allies, the strategic considerations surrounding Greenland, and the burgeoning U.S.-India defense relationship all point to a concerted effort to navigate the complexities of 21st-century security dynamics. Looking ahead, the culmination of these initiatives will likely shape the future of U.S. defense policy and its international relationships. As the world watches closely, the effectiveness of these strategies will be tested, particularly in the face of persistent global threats and the need for cohesive action among allied nations. The coming months will be critical in determining whether these efforts translate into sustainable security advancements or simply remain aspirational goals in a volatile international arena. The re-election of Donald Trump in 2025 has reignited debates over U.S. foreign policy in the Caribbean and Latin America, raising questions about the implications of his unique approach to diplomacy and power projection. As the Trump administration settles into its second term, it is clear that the Caribbean nations will need to navigate a landscape shaped by a combination of coercive tactics and traditional diplomacy, echoing historical precedents while carving out their own paths. Trump's affinity for strongman tactics, reminiscent of William McKinley and James Monroe, is evident. The former president's admiration for McKinley, whom he deemed a great but highly underrated leader, is coupled with a revival of Monroe's doctrine that historically aimed to deter foreign influence in the Western Hemisphere. However, Trump has escalated this approach, applying pressure not only to adversaries but also to traditional allies, including Canada, Mexico, and Panama. In the early weeks of his presidency, Trump has already implemented a series of executive actions, including significant tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, ostensibly as a response to immigration and drug trafficking issues. The reactions from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum were swift. While both condemned the tariffs, they agreed to negotiate, resulting in increased border patrols to address U.S. concerns. The administration's willingness to suspend these tariffs temporarily suggests a tactical victory for Trump, demonstrating that his aggressive posture can yield immediate compliance from neighboring nations. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro also faced Trump's heavy-handed approach when he initially refused to allow U.S. military flights to land. Faced with the threat of a 25% tax on Colombian exports, Petro capitulated, showcasing how Trump's tactics compel compliance even among long-standing allies. Meanwhile, Panama has become a focal point of Trump's ire, with the president alleging that Chinese control over the Panama Canal violates a historical treaty. Although these claims lack substantial evidence, they have spurred Panama to reassess its ties with China, with President José Raúl Mulino agreeing to withdraw from China's Belt and Road Initiative. While these instances illustrate a short-term effectiveness in Trump's foreign policy, they also raise concerns about the long-term implications of such strategies. Analysts warn that the blunt force of Trump's diplomacy could alienate allies and encourage them to diversify their international partnerships. Countries previously aligned with the U.S. may seek alternatives, particularly as China's influence grows in the region. This shift could ultimately lead to a more fragmented geopolitical landscape where U.S. dominance is challenged. The risks associated with Trump's method of governance are further underscored by the potential backlash from national pride and domestic political pressures within these countries. The short-term gains achieved through coercion could foster resentment and lead to a re-evaluation of alliances as countries weigh the costs of complying with U.S. demands against the benefits of pursuing independent foreign policies. As Trump navigates his second term, the question remains whether he is aware of the precarious balance between power and diplomacy that defines international relations. While his tactics may yield results now, the sustainability of these achievements is uncertain. The evolving dynamics in the Caribbean and Latin America will serve as a litmus test for the effectiveness of Trump's strategies, as nations grapple with the dual pressures of maintaining sovereignty while engaging with an assertive U.S. administration. In conclusion, as the geopolitical landscape continues to shift, it will be critical for Caribbean nations to adapt to Trump's brand of diplomacy. The next few years may reveal whether they can successfully balance cooperation with the United States against the allure of partnerships with alternative powers, particularly China, further transforming the region's diplomatic architecture.